Welcome to the podcast series at the College of Education and Integrative Studies. I'm Jeff Pass, the Dean at Cal Poly Pomona, and we have a special guest today, Dr. Estela Ballon. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have two of Estela's students here. We have Sarah Plazola, and we have Emma Ho. And we're going to be talking to Sarah and Emma a little bit later on, but we're going to start off with Dr. Ballon. And one of the things I'm excited about is your work studying Latina PhDs. Can you tell us how that work got started?
Sure. I've always been interested in education, number one. And so I was always interested in hearing the stories of people that started in community college and were able to go to a four-year institution and then go on to get their PhD. Because that's my story. And so I was wondering if other Latinas had the same story that I had, which my story was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of lack of information. And so my path was a little bit, I meandered on my path in college. And so I was always just curious to know what the stories were of other women who had the same path. Starting in community college.
So when did you start studying this phenomenon? I guess there's a bit of a phenomenon because it's relatively recent upsurge in Latina PhDs.
Yes. About 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I should say, I thought that I would start my research project. And so in graduate school, I had been trained in quantitative studies, though. And so I didn't really have any training in qualitative studies, and I wanted to do a qualitative project.
And by qualitative, for those of us who are unfamiliar with the term, it means not numbers, but using interviews, observations, looking at documents.
Yes, yes. So I was interested in doing in-depth interviews. So I had to read up, learn from other people about different techniques that people use to do qualitative research, learn a new lingo, new language in terms of doing research. And so then I decided to go ahead and do my project. And the first thing I did was I got IRB approval.
And IRB is the Institutional Review Board that makes sure that you're following the rules and protecting the subjects and so forth.
Yes, yes. And then I essentially contacted everyone I knew. Some groups are small. Essentially in academia, many Latinas already know each other, right? Because we are in similar circles of both social and academic. And so what I did was I reached out to individuals that I knew that had contact with a lot of other Latinas, and I asked them if they could help me recruit individuals for the study, and so they did. And my initial announcement went out actually on Facebook. And so it went to a lot of different circles within Facebook, and I had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, hey, I started in community college. And so a lot of people stepped forward to participate in the study.
So did you find that your pathway was similar to those of others?
Well, right now, I'm not completely done transcribing the interviews, so I haven't really begun the analysis, but just in terms of doing the interviews, I heard a lot of different stories. So I heard a lot of people that knew what they were doing when they got out of high school. For example, when I got out of high school, I didn't know what college was. I never heard of college. I wasn't introduced to college.
Because there was no one in your family as a model.
There was no one in my family as a model, but then also the school that I went to was a primarily working class school, and for the most part, there was not what's called a college-going culture. And even though I was in the honors classes for English, there was no discussion of college. And I think it was due to the fact that it was primarily a working class neighborhood, and so the expectation was that not many of us were going to go on to college.
The work that you're doing, what's the impact going to be? How will our society be better off as a result of the work that you've done?
Well, I think it's important to know the different stories that these Latina women have had. And so, so there might be some people like myself who had no knowledge, and yet there were other women who knew exactly what they were doing. Actually, there were some women who chose to go to community college even though they had been accepted at four-year institutions, but for different reasons, finances, staying close to home, family obligations, they chose to go to a community college. And so what I'm hoping emerges from this study is that we can come up with programs that support Latina women in college, that understand the needs of first-generation students, students who start at community college, because I don't think that necessarily we have the same paths as those students that start at four-year institutions. So I'm hoping that we're able to learn from these women and understand what their needs are and develop programming and maybe make some changes to the university in terms of what's a welcoming environment for first-generation Latina students.
Right. We at Cal Poly Pomona take great pride in our welcoming and inclusivity, but we could still learn how to do it better. As a professor of liberal studies, you're also working with a lot of young Latina women, many of whom perhaps will choose to go for a PhD?
Well, most of our students are planning on becoming teachers, but we have students that are, have other plans as well. So I think in our department, we haven't really had a culture of encouraging students necessarily to go on to PhDs, but I think that's changing now because of the changes in our curriculum. We're focusing more on research, and so I think that may be a new trend, and we have some new faculty in our department who are working with students on research projects, and so I think that might be a new avenue for our department. So in addition to those students that want to be teachers, there may be other students who go on to get PhDs and who go into just different sectors in the labor market.
Plus, there are teachers who would go on to become PhDs in education.
Absolutely.
Right. I was one of them. So let's expand to include our student guests. They're in a single class of yours?
Yes.
What class is that, and why would we have invited them here today?
Yes. The class is Interdisciplinary Perspectives of Public Education, and this is a course that was developed, it's probably been at least 10 years, and I would say that Dr. Cristina Chavez-Reyes was the one who initially pushed to have service learning be a part of the course.
This is the chair of the department?
The chair of our department, yes. She was the one who initially said our students need to have an experience, a learning experience that's outside of the classroom that will allow them to work with individuals that might be unlike themselves. And so that way students can learn about working with diverse students or in any job that they're going to go into.
So just as an aside, one of our earliest podcasts was with Dr. Cristina Chavez-Reyes. So the listeners might want to go into our archives and check out that interview because it's a really fascinating story.
Yes, yes.
So what happens in this course that involves service learning?
Well, the course itself is about public education. So the new structure of the course, since we just converted to semesters, is that we use interdisciplinary lens to look at education. So we look at some of the philosophies of education. We look at some of the politics of education. We start with the history, but we need a little more history, I think, because I think we kind of glossed over that. We used to have a whole separate course that was the history, but that was taken out of our curriculum. So anyway, so the service part of it initially started with work at a high school. We used to have a relationship with a high school, an alternative high school, and we had that relationship for many years. But then we decided that we wanted more local partners in Pomona or some of our neighboring communities. And so for this semester, We worked on campus on the food pantry here on campus, because one of the issues that has emerged in the media and in academia is a lot of discussion on food insecurity amongst college students. So I thought it was important. I always feel it's important for students to be connected in some way to the service, whether you come from that community or in this case, being a fellow college student, right? Serving your fellow college student. So the food pantry, and then actually this semester as well, we actually had people go out to the pantry that supplies the food for our campus, which is in Laverne. And so their students worked serving all of the communities that surround Laverne. And so that was a little bit broader in terms of the community. And then we also established a new partnership as well with Ranch Hills, which is an elementary school, which is right up the street on Temple. And so, so right now we have students doing a variety of different service projects.
So let's ask Emma and Sarah, what was your initial reaction to the service learning aspects of the course?
I really liked it. I was able to go out and connect with other students like myself, or connect with the community. So I really liked it.
Did it frighten you or entice you?
It was a little nerve-wracking at first, knowing that I'm going to have to spend an extra whatever amount of hours outside of the classroom, but you're able to fit it into your schedule.
Yeah.
Did you have a similar reaction, Emma?
I had a previous service learning class with Laura Bedard, Dr. Laura Bedard. So coming into this, I was extremely pleased that there was something food-related for service learning. I think I was mainly shocked at the concept of food insecurity on campus, and so learning about that. I personally come from a place of privilege. My family's upper middle class, and there was always this idea about college students, if you do have, assistance, monetary assistance, that you're all taken care of. And it was very interesting to be able to check myself and really see what was happening, because it's ridiculous how many students were doing without or struggling or having to add on so many extra jobs to be able to even manage a C average, but they're struggling just to get their education. So
you've hit on one of the main goals of service learning, is that dose of reality. Is like you could read about food insecurity in a book, but actually being on the scene and working with families, you get to see it in a way, in concrete fashion, that really makes it clear.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I loved Cal Poly, that the whole concept of learning by doing. And I've talked to a couple of other professors here at UCLA, and they said there's always this concept of being an academic, where you philosophize about things and then you kind of just let it sit there for other people to kind of maybe put into practice. And so being able to take the knowledge that we are given from our professors and be able to actively participate and step in the ring, essentially, to try and affect change, whether within yourself or your local community. I think that was pretty powerful.
What other things did you learn besides the prevalence of food insecurity?
Yeah, I learned that there are a lot of students on campus that do need help, and some are parents. For one of the food pantries that I volunteered for, they had diapers and baby wipes. I'm not a parent. I don't know how much they cost, but seeing a lot of dads were buying them too, or not buying them, they were getting them, and just little things like that I know help families. So it's nice seeing an impact, something that we can do, just even if it's menial. Just a little something to help those students. I mean, they're just like us. We're all struggling together, trying to pay for our college, trying to go to work, and then they have a little extra to take care of their families.
So it really exposed you to that, but yet I would guess as part of an academic course, this isn't just volunteer work, you're studying the deeper issues regarding food insecurity, the structural issues perhaps?
Yes. For me, I see it more as I want to become a teacher, and some of my students may have food insecurity. If it's not food insecurity, it could be other issues in their family. So it's good to connect with other people and hear their side of the story. So maybe I, as a future teacher, future educator, can help my students. The more experience I get, the more knowledge I get, I can help other people.
It definitely, because I do plan on doing some teaching at university level, hopefully, and trying to get that experience in there and telling yourself that it's one thing again, okay, I can stand there in line and I can be a good person and I can give the food to people who need it, but I have to continue to educate myself on policy, educate myself and represent the concepts that I have, in a teachers association, or go to the city and say, or go to my, governors and senators and say, hey, this isn't really right. How can we fix this? The fact that the food that was brought to the food pantry was reclaimed food that would have otherwise been, thrown away. I mean, that in itself, when I look at it from a critical food studies thing, is abhorrent to me. And it should be part of the system where, that food is already part of the system where it's like, okay, we know we have needy people, whether on campus or in the community. It shouldn't be just good-hearted people saying, I have to do this. It should be part of a system. And that's how I definitely want to keep getting on top of that, trying to figure out how we can work that into something.
So, Dr. Ballon, is that the kind of experiential learning that you were seeking when you designed these activities?
Yes, I mean, I have to say that we don't quite know who we're going to partner with, so I can't pretend that it's some grand plan. We have to see what works and who's willing to work with us and who is going to be able to provide our students with experiences that we feel are fulfilling and also, help the community. So, the one thing about service learning is that you have to be flexible. And so if you're very rigid about sort of one path and it falls through, then you have to sort of pull yourself together and go in a different direction. And so this quarter actually was the first time that I had multiple sites. In the past, I've only had one site, and I would go with the students. We used to go to this continuation high school, and so it was much more structured, I would say. And I always sort of avoided having multiple sites because it's more difficult to manage. And not only that, I used to be able to go with the students, and this way students are going in different places, but it worked out. It worked out, and I think students were also able to choose what fit their schedule and also what fit their desires, right, in terms of providing service. So, because we had the school and we had the food pantry, and then we also had the pumpkin patch, which was something new. It was just something that emerged. Like I said, it wasn't planned. We got an email from Dr. Cristina Chavez Reyes, saying, hey, they're looking for people for the pumpkin patch. And so I said, okay, that might be another option for people, because one of the struggles that I had this quarter was that with the new semester system, it seems like students' schedules are much tighter. And given that our students work 20 to 40 hours a week, getting those service hours in is difficult. And so having these multiple partnerships that allowed students options, I think had a better result than if we only had one place, one time that students had to go.
So when people think about the job of a professor, they imagine reading and writing and planning lessons and teaching and grading, of course, but not setting up partnerships with local agencies. So it really is a different kind of work than it was perhaps when you first entered the professoriate.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean, and it really is the partner, right? We have great partners, I have to say. Cristina Gonzalez Salgado over at the Center for Community Engagement, she's fantastic. She helps so much with the food pantry, and I'm always in constant communication with her.
So let's talk about that a little bit. There's an office of of community engagement.
Yes.
And they do a lot of the bureaucratic support that you need to do the job.
Yes.
So what kinds of things did that office do for you?
They're the ones that seek out partners, or if we have suggestions for a partner, we let them know, because then they have to do a site visit and they have to come to an agreement with that site partner. So, but they're the ones also that facilitated. We used to have a lot of paperwork that we used to have to fill out that was paperwork, and now they've created a system where everything is done online. Students can even log their hours online, although I didn't use that feature this semester, but yeah, so they try to streamline, a lot of the process for
So the
for us.
legal protection and
Legal
the
protections,
official agreements,
emergency
memorandum.
contacts.
Right. So that's great that we have that, and that's part of the support that the university provides
Yes.
in order to encourage more professors to do community engagement. What about your classmates? Did they all take to the community engagement aspect of the course, or did you see some differences?
I know there was differences.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about them.
I know one of the main issues was scheduling. Like you said, I'm glad that we had multiple sites, because I don't think I would have been able to fully complete my hours at just one site. I have my school, I have my work, and then I have another job that I do, so 2 jobs. And I'm just glad that we had other areas to, do our service hours for.
I think the differences that I saw were how proactive. Of course, you there's leaders in every group. So for me, it was seeing a connection. There were some students that had a huge connection to what they were doing, and some that were still, this is just part of the class. This is getting my grade. And so it was really important, at least for me, to be communicative when I was on site, or try and instill enthusiasm, because for me the food pantry was like, that was so cool, this is in my area. So I tried to, the last time we were there, they had the music going and I was just dancing the entire time, because I was like, come on, we gotta go, let's go. And so it was trying to kind of pump some energy into there, and kind of I think we hit a really good stride midway and everybody really focused in. But I think that was a little bit of the difference. It takes a few students a little bit longer to connect. And so I think, at least in terms of us being peers with each other, it's important that we help each other out, whether by studying group or even just like, hey, come on, we're in this together.
Right. And I think as more and more students experience community engagement and service learning, it will be less alien to them and they'll take to it a little bit quicker. But it's a relatively recent phenomenon in higher education, but one that our university in particular is embracing. I don't think we can go any further without talking about the pumpkin patch. Did either of you work on that?
Yes, it was great. It was such the festival. There was so many attractions. You have the actual patch itself, which is inside. You also have the bug fair, and
Did you say a bug fair?
yes.
I think you're going to have to explain that.
Okay, so the bug fair, they have just different variants of bugs in there, and the children, it's mostly children who want to go in, touch the bug, hold it, and it's just an attraction that the kids love to see. And just volunteering there was great. I know some of my friends were able to be in the pumpkin patch or in the children's fair section. So seeing the kids really enjoy themselves, and even the adults, the parents, they're having a great time too. Just knowing that just a little event like this can, bring a community together is really cool.
And what was your incentive in including the pumpkin patch as part of the course activities?
Well, I have to admit, initially, I wasn't open to the idea because I thought, oh no, another site that I have to manage. But when I really thought about it, I thought this is a good opportunity for our students because it is a community event. And then also there was a wide variety of hours and different activities that students could partake in. So so in the end, I used to attend the pumpkin patch myself when my children were small. I haven't been probably the last 5 years. My children are older now, so but I myself used to go to the pumpkin patch. So I knew it was a community event that attracts a lot of people to, you know.
And how do you evaluate the student learning when they go out into the field like this?
Well, obviously the number of hours is one thing, but they also have a reflection, an ongoing journal reflection that they keep, and so they just recently submitted the concluding journal entry. So for the most part, doing the actual service counts for a large portion of the grade, and then their journal also is a component of that.
And what kinds of things did you folks write about in your journal?
Well, we wrote about how it affected us, what are our views based off of, you know, what we did. How do we think it helped the community? How can we use this in the future? Just little examples like that.
So you were applying what you've learned.
Yes.
And you?
We were applying what we learned. There was a wonderful article by, I forget his first name, but it was the last name was Davis. I mentioned this in class the other day. And it was how you go into service, or what we don't talk about about service. And so I remember saying a lot of that, because if you are coming from a place of privilege, being that service is in vogue right now and in fashion, it's really important to focus on who you're serving, not about yourself, not that you're being good or you're, you know, or any kind of guilt mentality. You got to really focus and be present. And what I liked in terms of critical thinking was you also asked us, like, was there any suggestions of improvement for the actual event itself, so that got, you know, my creative juices flowing, and I was like, oh, maybe, you know, next time we could do this, or there could be more involvement with the students while they're waiting in line, because they're kind of somber while we're packing up all the bags, and, you know, so I was kind of pitching ideas back and forth, and that was really enjoyable for me.
So you were really strengthening your skills as a citizen, as a volunteer, as someone contributing to future growth of the effort.
Yes.
Do you intend to continue volunteerism as part of your post-college life?
I would love to, although Cal Poly is a little ways from me, but I do plan on doing some at home by my house. I know one of the nearby churches have Tuesday and Thursdays that they give out food to the homeless. I also used to be a Girl Scout, so I like to go back and help. My best friend's mom is the troop leader, so I like to go in and, you know, continue helping out. Girl Scouts was another way that, you know, I got to do more service for others.
Well, I know UCLA does have a very wonderful cooperative program about that has one of their focuses in food. So they have a community garden at UCLA. They do a lot of food outreach, food literacy that I'd love to participate in as a volunteer, as a student, becoming part of a new community. But also, I think seeing that there is need in college campuses in that area of food, whether it's the dining services trying to sort out food and waste and all these things, and learning as I further my education how to participate and do pro bono work as a professional in trying to use, you know, user design experience to make things a little bit better so that students can participate, and making sure that as a professional that no matter what I do, there's an element of giving back. And that's what I want to do.
That is a great closing note. Emma, Sarah, Dr. Ballon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.